Katrina. Number 10. Stigmata.
Stigmata is one of the more unusual religious phenomena that scientists have failed to explain time and time again. Those who have stigmata mimic the wounds that Jesus Christ suffered during his crucifixion.
Someone with stigmata typically has scar-like wounds or fully bleeding wounds appearing on their hands and feet as if they had been pierced with nails. They also occasionally have scratches along their hairline, as if a crown of thorns were placed on their head. And in rare cases, they will have a wound on their side in the same place Jesus was stabbed with a spear. It may sound scary, but devout Roman Catholics who suffer from stigmata don't see it as an affliction. They see it as a blessing, a sign that they were chosen by God to suffer just like his son. But how real is the phenomenon? The odd part is that for the first 1,200 years of Christianity, there were no reports of stigmata. The first person who suffered from it was Saint Francis of Assisi in the 12th century. The most famous case is that of Francesco Forgione. In 1910, Francesco began to notice small red wounds on his hands. These wounds continuously got worse until 1918, when he had fully blown stigmata. Those who witnessed the miracle firsthand claimed Francesco could fly, and that for some reason he smelled like violets and roses. Francesco was made a saint by the church, but not everyone believed his stigmata was real. Agostino Gemelli examined Francesco and came to the conclusion that he was doing it on purpose, maybe for attention, or maybe because he was delusional. Number 9. The Al Nazla Rock Formation.
Al Nazla Rock is a seemingly impossible phenomenon located in Saudi Arabia's Taima Oasis. It is, at its core, nothing but a rock. It's a chunk of stone in the middle of the desert. Well, two chunks of stone.
The thing that makes it so remarkable is that the stone is cut clean in half with the lines so straight it looks like it was made by a laser beam. Even the most advanced technology we have today would still have a difficult time creating such a clean cut through solid stone. Scientists can't explain how the rock was split so perfectly, not to mention that the two halves of the rock are balancing precariously in place, looking about ready to tip over and smash. Al Nazla is more than just a big rock. It's also a piece of history. The stone surface is covered in mysterious petroglyphs left behind by an ancient race of people. One of the petroglyphs shows the image of a monster, some strange hybrid of a giraffe and an elephant. Geologists say the explanation is simple. The ground likely shifted slightly beneath the two supports of the rock, causing it to break clean in half. It could have also been a pressure crack.
You won't find any mainstream scientists saying it was a laser beam, but if it was a laser that sliced this rock in two, whose laser beam was it?
Number 8. The Giant's Causeway.
The Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland is by far one of the most striking natural formations on the planet. It is a collection of what appear to be interlocking hexagonal towers.
There are over 40,000 basalt columns that look as if they were stacked perfectly next to one another in a grid formation. They aren't all the same size, with some taller than others, so that the causeway forms a messy staircase.
But the construction is perfect. Ancient people didn't know what to think of it and made up stories to explain the wonder.
The most famous story is of a giant by the name of Finn McCool. Across from the Giant's Causeway on the other side of the water is Scotland. The story goes that Finn had a beef with a Scottish giant named Benandonor. One day, Finn decided to build a bridge so that he could sneak across the sea and beat up the Scottish giant in the middle of the night. But when Finn reached the other side, he was disturbed to find Benandonor way bigger than he had anticipated. The giant was even more giant than Finn McCool. So Finn ran away back to Northern Ireland. The problem was that the bridge still existed. Finn's wife saved the day by dressing McCool up as a baby and putting him in a giant crib. When Benandonor came across the bridge and found the ginormous baby, he was terrified to think how big it would be when it grew into an adult. As he ran back to Scotland, Benandonor destroyed the bridge on his way. The Giant's Causeway is all that's left.
Scientists say it was likely formed by a volcanic eruption 60 million years ago, but the story of the giants is way more interesting, don't you think? What would you like to come back as? And now for number 7. But first, it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Wildflowers Gaming and Bagatong by a Hero for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this.
Number 7. Tibet's ancient Bon religion.
There is a spiritual tradition in the isolated land of Tibet that most people have never heard of before. It's called the Bon religion, and it predates Buddhism.
Scientists don't know where it came from. Archaeologists don't know who started the religion. All anyone knows is that it's been around for thousands of years. The religion has its own pantheon of gods. It has its own spirits. There are complex ritual practices that have been passed down through generations. It's a fully fledged religion with its own principles that nobody knows the history of. In Tibet, the Bon religion has been around for anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 years. Some sources even place it at 5,000 years old, which could make it the oldest continuously practiced religion in the world. Since Buddhism was founded in the 7th century AD, the Bon religion is obviously significantly older. The word itself, Bon, comes from the Bonpo language. It means to invoke the gods. Like most religions who worship many gods, Bon's deities are extremely diverse. They are animistic, representing aspects of nature and other natural forces.
The Bon religion focuses heavily on spiritual energy and all natural things. They believe every rock and grain of sand has some amount of energy within.
One of the more unusual parts of their religion is how they view death. Death to them is not the end, but just another part of the cycle. When someone dies on Earth, the soul floats into the higher realm, where it stays for 49 days. This is so the soul can undergo a process of purification. The spirit will be visited by several deities. Depending on how the person lived their life on Earth, they will either be reincarnated well or rebirthed in a miserable situation. Maybe they'll come back as a bird, free to soar, or maybe they'll be a rock for the rest of eternity. Number 6. Time slips.
A time slip is an unexplainable phenomenon in which a moment from the past suddenly appears in the present.
For example, Caroline Anders was on her way to Plymouth in the United Kingdom in the 1980s. Her friend was behind the wheel and she sat in the passenger seat. As they went through a roundabout, Caroline saw the most beautiful church on the side of the road with stained glass windows and a huge congregation inside. She didn't say anything about it because Caroline assumed everyone in the car had seen the same thing. A few weeks later, when Caroline and her boyfriend passed through the same roundabout, she was shocked. The church was in ruins. That was when her boyfriend told her it had been a ruin ever since it was bombed in the Second World War. Caroline explained seeing the church fully intact and brightly lit. Her boyfriend Paul said it was impossible. This is an example of a time slip, when a person miraculously witnesses a glimpse from the past. Many paranormal investigators believe time slips happen specifically in areas where intense events occurred. In the case of Caroline and the church, the intense event would have been the bombing. Unfortunately, scientists have no explanation for how or why it happens. Most scientists dismiss the phenomenon as little more than an active imagination.
Have you ever experienced a time slip? Let me know in the comments below. And hit that subscribe button while you're at it.
Number 5. The Phantom Cities. In 1643, a Jesuit priest by the name of Father Domenico Giardina witnessed a city made of crystal floating over Sicily. The Jesuit priest was absolutely stunned. He stood in wonder, gaping at a phantom city hovering hundreds of feet in the air. He saw a great garden and a forest looming in the background. It looked like there were tens of thousands of people in the glistening capital. Then, as quickly as the vision had come, it was gone. The Jesuit priest was convinced he had been given a vision from God. In 2015, the floating city appeared again. This time it was caught on video hovering above the Chinese city of Jiangxi. It looked like for a few brief seconds the universe was ripped open and a city from an alternate reality emerged in the clouds. Scientists explain the phenomenon as Fata Morgana, an extremely rare mirage. It's caused by light rays bending through the clouds. The mirage reflects a nearby city into the sky, making it look like a glimpse of another dimension. The old mirage excuse has been used to explain things like the Flying Dutchman, the legendary pirate ship said to float through the fog, but many believe it's not that simple. There are those out there who believe the fabric of reality is not quite what it seems. Number 4. Balancing Rock. Balancing Rock is a weird geological phenomenon about a mile away from Malingnong village in India. The rock is kept safe by a small wire fence, but even without the fence, it would most likely be fine. The massive boulder has been balancing perfectly on a minuscule stone for ages. No storm has ever knocked it over, nor has any man ever tipped it. The rock is surrounded by peaceful bamboo plantations, but it wasn't always that way. According to the locals, Balancing Rock was used in human sacrifices 1,000 years ago. The ancient Khasi tribe thought the rock was magical and covered it in human blood to appease their deity. It's only a rumor though, something that scientists have never authenticated. The truth is that nobody knows the ancient history of the rock. It's a mystery how it manages to balance so perfectly and at such an obtuse angle. Do you have any theories? Let me know in the comments. Number 3. A sound in the atmosphere. Scientists from Sandia National Laboratories launched a balloon into the stratosphere to study the acoustic environment of the sky. They essentially floated a gigantic microphone into the atmosphere so that they could listen to what it sounded like. They were expecting to find some weird stuff, but what they recorded was beyond their expectations. Experts are baffled by a series of strange noises picked up by their balloon. The stratosphere is typically free of storms and turbulence. There isn't any air traffic, yet the microphone picked up unusual noises at seemingly perfect intervals every hour. The noise was picked up in the infrared sound range at frequencies of below 20 Hz. The sounds are so low they wouldn't be heard by the human ear. Daniel Bowman, one of the scientists at the laboratory, said the source of the noises is totally unknown. What could possibly be making extraordinary sounds at 70,000 feet above the surface of the planet? Researchers have no theories or explanations. Nobody expected such noises to be up there. It's a total mystery, which was presented to the scientific community at the meeting of the Acoustical Society of America 2023. Number 2. Lost copper mines. There isn't much going on in the Isle Royale National Park of Michigan these days, other than some hikers and roaming packs of wolves. But 6,000 years ago, it was a different story. The park was home to an ancient mining operation. Early Native Americans discovered veins of copper winding through the bedrock. They extracted copper ore to make tools, which they used to advance their civilization. But they didn't just pull the copper out of the dirt with their fingers. They had an intensive mining operation here, one so big, researchers are struggling to understand it. In the 1800s, European explorers were shocked to find evidence of indigenous copper mines. In some parts of Michigan, there are pits going over 60 feet into the bedrock. Europeans couldn't comprehend how the natives mined so deep using only stone tools. PhD student David Pompeani wanted to get to the bottom of the mystery. He searched Lake Superior for evidence of lead pollution caused by ancient mining activity. This led him to the abandoned mines of Isle Royale, which appear to be the biggest mines prior to Europeans. But David still hasn't solved the mystery. He identified a spike in pollution about 6,500 years ago, which lasted for 1,000 years. But then it ended abruptly, and there was no more mining until the 1800s. What happened to the miners, and where did they go? Number 1. The difference between Neanderthals and humans. Scientists are still trying to understand the key differences between Neanderthals and human beings. A team of archaeologists from the UK and Portugal have just made some headway. These scientists studied survival behavior of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals living in Europe. They were shocked to find that the two hominids depended on wildly different food sources. Scientists reached their conclusions by studying tooth enamel from prehistoric samples. They looked at Neanderthal teeth discovered in the Almonda cave system in central Portugal, dated back 100,000 years. They also looked at human teeth from the same rock shelter 17,000 years ago. Researchers were able to measure differences in the chemical properties from the tooth enamel. They found that Neanderthals were obsessed with hunting big animals. They weren't trapping rabbits or hunting down squirrels. They were going after prime meat, big game like woolly mammoths. On the other hand, early modern humans in Portugal preferred small animals. They also only hunted within a territory about half the size of the Neanderthals' territory. It's tough to say what this means right now, but it seems to suggest population density differences. The Neanderthals were much more spread out, whereas humans had a tendency to stick together in close communities. This could be why Neanderthals went extinct. Maybe they didn't want to work together, whereas humans did. Thanks for watching! Do you think phantom cities are part of an ethereal world beyond our own, or just mirages? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and come back soon. Bye!